did not think I'd make it here. I was stuck in Atlanta this morning, and but I made it because of this. We're not done with our mission until everyone comes home. We get a blanket day one pardon, whether it takes the form of commutation, whether it takes Cash Patel or someone else coming in and dismissing cases. The point is we have to get our countrymen out of the gulag. And it's worth coming all the way from New Mexico to share my insights. First and foremost, as a prosecutor, for the better part of a decade, I prosecuted real criminals. And I'll tell you right now, when I would go after a rapist or a murderer or a thug, they didn't look like the Midwestern Christian veterans, police officers, FBI agents that were actually honest. We had Jeremy Wise here earlier, and they've made your lives living hell. And as a prosecutor, I was struck with many legal deviations. This is what really offended me, because you've got cases like Brady versus Maryland. This case that goes back to, I think, to 1963, with the premise that the state, the government, has to do what? Produce all exculpatory evidence that tells you whether you're innocent or not. Well, we just had a report from the Inspector General, Horowitz, on what? At least 26 embedded agents, provocateurs, that, as a matter of law, had to be disclosed. The J6ers were entitled to know who their identities were. Why? Because you also have this thing called the confrontation clause, a guaranteed right to confront your accusers. They've been deprived of that. It is my firm belief that the most salacious things that you see on camera, the things that have been played over and over again, is a byproduct of agitators that weren't indicted. And you had unwitting, wonderful people standing right next to them that were swept up. So I only have one caveat for the blanket day one pardon. That if you are a Fed provocateur, you don't count. You don't get a pardon. The other case that comes to mind is the Giglio decision. The Giglio decision came about 10 years later with the idea that if you had credibility issues, if the state knew that there was someone that they were going to pass off as a witness to a J6er, that has to be disclosed. There are many actors, individuals that raise many questions, Ray Epps in particular. Why hasn't anybody been able to subject him to the stand for cross-examination? It's curious. Why does he receive such protection from the swamp? Another possible violation of the rights of the J6 prisoners. Again, these are concepts that come from cases that are 40, 50, 60 years old. Then you also have this thing called entrapment. And I really want to focus on this because much of the debate, even among conservatives, is whether or not violent offenders should be afforded a day one pardon. And let me be clear, absolutely. Absolutely. Why? Because when you have this thing called entrapment, the law has long held that you're entitled to dismissal. When you have people that were setting up people to fail, to brand them as criminals, it creates this thing called the fruit of the poisonous tree. And so while everyone is trying to distinguish between violent and nonviolent behavior, their analysis should be squarely focused on whether or not you had the state creating a landscape that made you all more likely to fall into a trap. And that's exactly what happened on January 6th. Another thing that I want to bring up from the standpoint of the law, if you look at most garden variety charging, when it comes to assault on a police officer, typically if you're called to the scene of a crime or if there was a bar fight, you're looking at sentences that are imposed anywhere from 6 months, maybe up to 18 months. That's the typical range that you'll see for assault on a peace officer. And I look at the Jake Langs of the world. I look at the Ryan Samsels of the world. I look at the folks that have been incarcerated almost 4 years. They would have exceeded the max sentence for assault on a peace officer 2, 3-fold. Great injustice, great injustice. So we can just rattle off violation after violation after violation, and it makes you wonder who are the real criminals. And so I want to preface this, as a prosecutor, it was my job to screen my cases, to investigate my cases, to ensure that I didn't have dirty witnesses violating Giglio. It was my job to figure out if there was anything that would tend to prove the innocence of the accused to provide to the other side, because I didn't want to have that on my conscience. Because a violation of Brady actually follows convictions, meaning I could be disbarred. Someone could file a complaint for me against me if I withheld that evidence. Where are the DOJ's attorneys when it comes to acting righteously, doing the right thing? And it's not just them, it's the judges. I've never seen such a manifest injustice in my life than when I look at these judges, their callous, cold hearts. And so my ardent prayer since day one is to raise awareness, offer a level of vindication that on the law, when it comes to this thing called equality under the law, the J6ers have been given a raw deal. Because if entrapment was part of the landscape, and make no mistake, it was. If you had facts that show that you had provocateurs and agitators that shot rubber bullets at the J6ers, deployed gas against them, they had a lawful right to self-defense of themselves and others. So while everyone wants to point to salacious photographs of Jake Lang holding a bat, did you ever ask yourself why he was holding a bat? Because someone was murdered right in front of him. That's why. Why did he have a gas mask? Because he was sprayed with gas. And so for all of the cold-hearted swamp creatures that live here, how much is enough? How much do you need? How much blood do you need to draw from the J6ers before you're satisfied? Because as we've established today, the sentences are excessive. The law has been violated by the state. And so I'll leave you with this. We need to get these folks out. We can't leave anyone behind. And my earnest plea to Donald Trump, if you see this, is that you have righteous prosecutors, you have righteous law enforcement officers, and they are all sick to their stomach about what they've seen. The reason why I am invested in this is because my profession let the J6ers down. And Jeremy Wise, who I spoke with in the back as a former FBI agent, he will tell you that the agents, by and large, let you down. And so we're here to bear witness, to provide testimony that this has to be remedied. So going forward, we want the pardons. We want them day one. We want pardons of innocence. We want restitution. There's ways to go about getting restitution. Everyone on the unselect committee is actually guilty of the 1512 charge. When you look at obstruction, real obstruction, when you apply the black letter law, the Liz Cheneys of the world violated that statute. They should be arrested. There should be civil asset forfeiture, and assets should be taken, and that should be the money that's used to make you all whole. It needs to happen. And then one last suggestion after the pardon. There needs to be a law that protects the J6ers as a protected class so they cannot be discriminated against in the job market. There's going to be a lot of woke, leftist, radical Marxists that are going to punish you. They're going to try to keep you from integrating back into society. So I propose that there's a law that treats the J6ers as a protected class, that you can't discriminate against them, or there will be legal penalties for that. This is just the beginning. 4 years have been lost, people have been devastated, and justice demands that we make it right. So day one, President Trump, within the first 9 minutes, we want those doors open. We want to march over to the J6, or the DC Gulag, and we want to be there waiting for our brothers and sisters to come out, welcome them back to society as heroes. And we thank you, Mr. Lang and the family, in allowing us to share our thoughts today. God bless you all.